Okay.
All right, cool. I'll
Thanks,
start
Hugh.
with that.
Sorry about that. I'll have a chat to you afterwards now. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. We'll just give everyone 30 seconds or so to make a start. And we've also got Matthew on the line as well. Hi, Matthew.
Hello there. Good morning, all.
We're just getting a few more people joining. So this is a sound test to make sure that everything's working okay. And we'll make a start very shortly. Okay, we'll make a start. So thank you very much, everyone for joining. We're on the Building Effective Remote Departments using Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to hand over to Matt, who's going to do an introduction about the challenges around the remote workforce and how CSG can help.
Okay, good morning. Thank you all for attending this morning's event. Thus building an effective remote working department using modern technology such as Microsoft Teams. My name is Matthew Bater. I'm supported today by one of our team's cloud consultants, Hugh Valentine. You are able to send some questions across via the questions bar, and these will be covered off at the end. So we'll leave a bit of time at the end to help you there. Today's event has been designed to provide information around Teams and how this can help staff within the organizations become more productive during what we see now as challenging times. Over the last 6 weeks, our teams within CSG have been supporting our clients through deployment of various remote working technologies, extending services that may have not been in place to entire organizations. So we've set up thousands of VPNs, rolled out 365 to clients that didn't have it. We've also configured Teams and other similar services, such as Collaborate for those who are using and operating Horizon as their business PBX. And we've pushed out hundreds and hundreds of laptops in such a short space of time. So I think you'll all agree that these are times where collaboration tools and modern technologies really help to ensure teams are working productively. So some of the challenges we have discussed with some of our customers, the staff need to be working from home, accessing everything they would in the office, accessing those services via non-corporate devices. And a big challenge has been, accessing legacy applications that were never designed really for modern working and remote working. So we've been helping customers to overcome those challenges. Where you're not in the office and you need to collaborate on projects and key information and data, it's the ability to seamlessly share information and have the visibility of the key stats, data, and everything around those projects. With anything that's remote working, because you're not sitting behind the corporate kind of security services as standard, it's a bit of a challenge for remote workers. You're reliant where staff are using their own devices, that they have AV on there and they're up to date. They're not running kind of legacy operating systems and patched and so on and so forth. So that's a bit of a challenge and a concern for most organizations. From a communications perspective, still a lot of customers tend to rely on legacy phone systems. A lot have migrated to the cloud, so you can access your DDI and corporate numbers off mobile apps, soft phones with headsets like Teams, and obviously then if you've got an IP-based handset, you can even take that to your home address, plug that into the internet, so you can continue to actually work as normal. The other challenges we've discussed with some of our customers, are productivity levels and wellness of remote workforce, because you're not going into the office, you're not having that day-to-day contact with some of the staff. So it really is a challenge and a different type of mindset change. So hence the newer technologies lend themselves better to actually keeping in touch with people on a personal and a business level. So this where making the use of the right technology comes in. Collaboration, chat, video, virtual meetings, conference services, all kind of ring-fenced and under one technology set. These services help extend a more personal kind of touch where all of your staff are working remotely, so you can share ideas, you can share information, and also work on projects collaboratively. Office 365, most tend to have that these days, but what we're finding is a lot of our customers, they're using it for email, licensing of desktop Office applications, maybe some SharePoint and Teams, but they're not really using this to the full extent. So I think over the next couple of months, we'll be doing a lot of work to help educate and use a consultative approach to making sure that people are getting the most bang for buck. We've been deploying cloud-based phone services for a number of years now. We've probably got something like 2,500 seats on a Horizon product, and we can also now provide SIP trunking for Teams, so businesses can use Teams as their business grade phone system with PBX for their normal phone services and phone lines. So that's coming online now in the next couple of weeks. But really, where we've seen a big kind of plus for organizations in the cloud, we've deployed a number of different technology sets to enable them to work from their own desk. So that has been a real positive for many of our customers. And as I touched on earlier, a big challenge is around security. You know, business owners, C contacts are really concerned about the security of data with GDPR, a big problem and a bit of a challenge to overcome. You know, the policies, procedures, and all of the security systems need to really extend to remote working. So I know a lot of companies have invested in that, some haven't. So it's ensuring that, you know, cloud and identity-based security is actually in place irrespective of location. So we've been helping companies overcome these challenges. Obviously, Microsoft Teams is a big service that has been deployed. I think, you know, you can only see the numbers of kind of come online since these challenges have hit us as on our economies. So Teams can help with a lot of these challenges. So that kind of summarizes my introduction. I'll pass you across to Hugh, who's going to run through how Teams can help, and just to give some key snippets of information around some hints and tips as to how you can best integrate this within your organizations.
Thank you very much. So we'll jump over to kind of the current situation. So we're using Microsoft Teams to operate remotely. We've been very successful doing so, and we've got some tips and tricks that we want to share with you guys today to hopefully help you guys start to get the most out of this platform. So the agenda that we're going to cover off, we're going to talk through the licensing that's available for Microsoft Teams, how you're able to get this platform. We're going to go through an overview of Microsoft Teams. So what is Microsoft Teams? What's it best used for? That kind of thing. We've got some guidance on how we can quickly deploy Microsoft Teams. So obviously in the current situation, people are scrambling to use this technology. So how can you guys get started with this? We've got mapping departments to remote working. So this is going to cover off and talk about how we can basically map a department and their old way of working based in the office, and how we can adapt and make that department work more effectively with a remote working environment. We're going to cover off governance. So obviously when people start to scramble to use some of this technology, there's often a sacrifice of the governance. So we want to cover off some of the things that you need to think about. And once you have deployed Teams quickly, areas that you should think about recapping and going back over once we've all got a bit more time. We've got some quick tips on what we can use Teams for. We've got some workshops we'll discuss, and then at the very end, we've got time for questions and answers. So as we said earlier, if you've got any questions as we're going through today, there's a question and answer feature, so you can post your questions, and we'll cover those questions off at the very end of the session and hopefully answer any questions that you have. So today's takeaways, what we hope you'd get from today is understanding the licensing. So what's the best licenses? How can we get Teams? How to deploy Teams optimally, how to get departments to adopt this, how to cover security and adoption, and we're also going to cover off some of the voice components as well, so we shall discuss that. So jumping into Microsoft Teams, and what is Microsoft Teams and what licenses includes it. So if you've got Office 365 already, there's good news. It's included in all the Office 365 licenses. So if you've got Office or Microsoft 365 licenses, you will be able to start to use most of the functionality that's in Microsoft Teams today. There's also an offer at the moment from Microsoft, who are offering 50 free E1 licenses for 6 months. So if you've joined today and you don't have Office 365 at all, then you can get in touch with us and we can look at helping you to get the free E1 licenses set up. There is a license called audio conferencing, which we'll talk about at the end in the business voice, but there's some additional features that this license provides, such as the ability to dial in. We also have business voice. So that's the ability to basically send and receive calls. So I'll cover that at the very end. And CSG now provide direct SIP routing. So we have 2 options available for the business voice, which I'll cover off in more detail. So to summarize, really, Teams is pretty much available to anybody. You've got it probably if you already have Office 365 licenses. And if you don't currently have Office 365, get in touch about these E1 licenses and we can look to help you get these set up. So what is Microsoft Teams? So anybody that hasn't used Microsoft Teams before, the best way to kind of show the functionality and how it all works is to just jump straight into a live demonstration of the platform. So I've dragged over a Teams window here. Now, effectively, the first concept of Microsoft Teams is we have this individual chat section here. So the individual chat section basically is a replacement for Skype for Business. So anybody that's currently using Skype for Business or has used it in the past, the chat functionality basically provides us the ability to send messages to individuals in the organization. So we've got Steve here who works in the organization. I can send over a message to Steve just to say, hello, how are you? One of the great things about Teams that it has above Skype for Business is we can see all the conversation history that's ever happened as well. So I can, on Skype, that's quite difficult to do, but on Teams, it's very easy to go back and see the conversations and messages that have been sent in the past. Another cool thing that we have with the Teams is we can send an urgent message or an important message to a user. So now we're all working remotely. If there's an urgent inquiry that pops up, like perhaps I need to get hold of Steve for something, I can send him an urgent message and say, hello, can you get in touch ASAP? And that'll notify Steve now every 2 minutes for 20 minutes until he acknowledges the message. You can either do that by hitting like, or he can respond in here, and that'll then stop automatically sending him messages. So the chat really is fantastic for sending individual chats to people. And you can see we can do a video call, and we can also do an audio call as well. So that's kind of the first piece of this. The second piece is the actual Teams functionality. So this is where the main functionality for Microsoft Teams exists. So the idea of Microsoft Teams is we see it working really well in organizations for 3 main areas. The first one is what we're going to focus on today, basically looking at departmental areas and providing a team for each department in the organization. So in your organizations currently, you'll have a finance department, maybe an IT department, a HR team. We would really recommend that you look at creating a Microsoft team for each of those departments that exists. And then this basically is a lockdown area. So everyone who you invite to this team in finance would have access to this team. And the whole idea of Teams then is basically to provide a space to replace internal emails. So instead of sending internal emails back and forth, what we can do now is we can click this A icon down here and we can start to send messages back and forth. So one of the tips that we'd like to share with people today is we recommend that all organizations look at doing what's called a daily catch-up. So if you're currently struggling to communicate with your team and you're starting to try and figure out, right, now we're working from home, what's the best way to keep in touch and start to build that kind of working relationship whilst you're not at the home location, while you're still at a home location. So daily catch up, basically we can set up a thread here. So I've hit the new conversation, I've hit this A, and I'm doing a daily catch up for today. And what I can do is I can tag the entire team here by typing @team. So what this does is it will basically send a notification to everybody who's in this team. So by typing @team, it's basically like sending an email to everyone in the finance team. What I can then do is I can say, right, I'm doing a catch up. So in the daily catch up today, we're going to do a general social time, we're going to do a tasks for the day, and then we're going to wrap up with any other business. So the whole idea of the teams, as I mentioned, is to get rid of internal emails. And this daily catch up is a really good way of, right, what's the focus for today? It gets people in that mindset of, right, what am I working on today? I'm going to start my day with a call with the rest of the team. And then once I've done that, I can then carry on with my day-to-day activity. So this daily catch-up thread here is now a post where everyone can start to send and receive messages throughout the day. We can also start a video chat. So if I was to hit the Meet Now button here, the Meet Now basically allows me to start a conversation and drag people into the meeting here, and I can drag the rest of the team into here to say, right, we need to have a catch up. So we use the Meet Now functionality to kick that process off and start the Meet Now. Within a meeting, we have the ability to record it. So if I flick back through the history here, we can see here I've got a previous catch-up thread where I've got the weekly detailed catch-up, and I've then got a recording of the meeting here. So we can actually record that meeting as we're going through, and then someone can click on that video to play it back, and we're then able to play the video back. So if someone isn't able to attend the daily catch-up for whatever reason, they're then able to play the video back and see what was going on during that meeting. The next thing we can do within a team is we can tag an individual. So if I was working on in the finance department and I wanted to get Chris and Dougie's attention in here, I can say, where are the expenses up to? And by tagging just Chris and Dougie, that basically is sending a message only to Chris and Dougie. So not everybody in the team is going to get that pop-up notification, but it's very handy because if someone else was going to chase Chris or Dougie on expenses, they can see that that's being done, and they can then like that, or they can comment to say, I need those today too. Can you keep me updated? So this kind of @team tag basically gets everybody's attention, whereas tagging the individuals basically only gets those particular individuals into the meeting. So that's kind of the first functionality of Microsoft Teams. It's all about providing a replacement for internal email. And as an organization, we've very much moved away from sending internal emails. We've defined a policy in which we say, if it's unless it's really formal type stuff, the only time we send emails is if it's for appraisals or disciplinaries or that kind of stuff, where it's kind of a formal HR process. Anything else, if it's project related, daily, day-to-day catch-up related, we always use Teams within here to send those off. We also have a file section at the top. So the file section basically provides us a folder structure in which we can move all of our files over. So if your organization is currently using a file server and you're struggling with a VPN to get connected, then potentially you could look at creating a finance section here. We could then upload the finance files into here, and it basically provides a place that department can sync their files and work on. So I can either access them in the Teams view here, or I can hit this sync one, and that'll open up a product on my PC which is called OneDrive. And the OneDrive syncing basically provides me a folder here, which you can see called Demo Finance. So what this means is I can access all of my files in a traditional network type view. And it basically then means that you can see here, I've got a cloud icon. So this cloud icon indicates that I can only access this when I have an internet connection. And therefore, I need to have an internet available to make changes and view the file. But what will also happen is I can right click on a file here and I can choose always keep on this device. And what that basically means is it creates a synchronized copy of those files on your PC. So you can see here, always keep on this device. And that means that when I'm making changes on the file, if I don't have an internet connection, it then synchronizes those changes up into the cloud and makes them available to everybody else. So this kind of syncing functionality is very, very useful. It was more useful when we were out and about, when we were on the train and we wanted to make changes. But you potentially might be struggling with a poor internet connection at the moment. You might find that the sync is a very good way of taking a copy of those files to your PC and then being able to work on them as you need to. So that's kind of the files section. And then you can see across the top here, we then have the ability to create lots of different tabs. So some of the useful tabs that we find help, we've got a wiki tab. So a wiki tab basically is an internal knowledge base for the finance department. So I've put an example in here where we've got some procedures on how to update Sage, and there's some documents in there, or how to access payroll. And I can see that there's different sections on here where I can see policies, I can see some information on COVID-19. So think of the wiki if you've got new starters who are starting in the current way and they're starting remotely. The wiki is a fantastic place to put all that information so that when they get started, they can just quickly jump on the wiki and they can see all of the information to help them with their day-to-day. We've also got the ability to pin other types of tabs. So if I hit the add button, I've got lots of different tabs in here. You can see it supports lots of different types of applications. So if you use something like Trello at the moment, there's a nice integration where we can get Trello working with Microsoft Teams as well. Some of the ones that I like that will certainly help you guys, we'll cover off, we'll come back to those and I'll cover those off as well for you afterwards, and we'll talk about some of the tips and tricks. So Microsoft Teams are very good for replacing departmental functionality. So think of your current company structure and think about creating a team for each department in the organization. The next thing that a team is really good for is a project one. So you'll have cases on projects that you're all working on at the moment, which are basically cross-department and they involve multiple people. So another really good use case for Teams is to create one for each project. And the final piece really is I would recommend that we can consider creating a social team as well. So a social team, obviously now we're all working from home, we don't just want to be focused all the time on work. It can be a bit cabin fever if you're just constantly working from home. So we find if you look at creating a social one, we can then use that to start to have a bit of fun in the organization. So one of the things that we're doing as a department every week now is we're doing happy hour. So sometimes we do a departmental wide happy hour where we bring in the finance team, we'll have a conversation and chat with them. But we can also do a company-wide happy hour where we bring everybody from the company in. And the whole idea of this basically is to just at the end of the day on a Friday, try and have a bit of fun. So things that we've been doing a company quiz. So it's very easy to do that over a video call and conversation. We've found some online games that we're able to play. So a very popular one in our team is Jackbox, which is like an online quiz game, which is really fun. And we also just have some general social time. So just having a catch up with people. One of the limitations with Teams, so a lot of people have used Zoom because Zoom is able to provide more than 4 videos on the screen at any given time. So one of the new features that we'll be rolling out soon, Teams will soon be able to have up to 9 people on a video screen at any time. So if you're currently using Zoom to try and get more people on, Teams will definitely have that functionality coming in shortly. So yeah, just to recap the kind of teams that we'd recommend, the departmental ones, the project ones, and also consider creating a social team and then having a bit of fun. And you can use that social team for things like new announcements, new starters, leavers, all that kind of thing. Just don't, when you're trying to build the way of working around this, don't just be focused on how are we going to get people to work on it. Think about all the interactions people have on a day-to-day basis, which is there's lots of social pieces. And to keep people motivated and happy, we definitely want people to be having their social time on this platform as well. So the next thing with Teams is you'll notice down the left-hand side, I have different channels. So the finance team is typically broken into different channels. So we might have an accounting one, we might have a payroll one. So what we can do with a channel is we're able to just create a new channel and we can basically create 2 types of channel. So the purpose of a channel is if I jump to accounting here, you'll see it's got its own conversations, it's got its own files, and it's got its own wiki section. So the idea is if you've got a really busy team where the general channel is being posted in all the time, we can create a new channel to break that conversation up. So it's very good for putting like if you've got payroll and you want different conversations in there, we would recommend looking at creating different channels just to help people navigate and break some of that conversation up. We can also have a private channel. So you'll notice here I've got a little padlock next to this salary one. So a private channel can be only a certain group of people from within finance. So the other channels without a padlock, everyone in finance has access to those. But this padlocked one is restricted to only certain members of finance. So there might be 1 or 2 people in that salary team that don't need to see things like director's bonus or the other information. So we can use a private channel to restrict the conversations and have a very locked down folder where we can put things like salary information as well. So that not the whole company won't be able to see that. It's only perhaps 1 or 2 members of the finance team that can see this then. The next thing with Microsoft Teams is we have the ability to add people in externally as well. So what we find very useful is we work on a marketing, we work with a third-party marketing organization. What we don't want to be doing is receiving Google links or Dropbox links and having to set up lots of different accounts in their environments just to access our marketing information. So what we can do from within a team is we can hit the add member here, and we can actually type someone in externally. So I've put my Gmail account in here, and I can click on add. I can see that's already been added, but effectively what that does is it'll give access to someone outside of your organization, full access to all the conversations, the files. They can effectively use Teams in the way I've been showing you, and that's completely free. You don't have to pay any additional costs for them. They will be able to start to work in this way of working without you guys having to worry about costs. It's free for those people to join. So what that means is if we're thinking about the new way of working, we can have people like your suppliers, you can have your customers, and they're able to come in and join and start to work in this area. Perhaps you use a third-party payroll company, or you have a HR company or a marketing company. You can create those teams and you can invite them into here. Or again, if you're working on a project, and perhaps usually you'd be meeting face-to-face with people during that project, and that's now more difficult, we can actually just invite them into this, and they can then start to interact with you by using the conversations and the other pieces in here. So that's kind of the Microsoft Teams. We'll come back to some of these tabs later on, and I'll cover off some kind of use tips on how to get your department working remotely. But think of Teams as a way of basically a modern communication platform and removing emails that are sent back and forth. And this is a much quicker way of working. And the other fantastic benefit of this is it works really well on a mobile phone. So I can just open my mobile phone and I've got this app on my phone, and basically all the functionality that I'm able to show you, I can basically use this on my phone. So I could put on here a very quick message to say I'm on my mobile, and you'll see that message has popped up. So when I was out about traveling a lot, Teams basically provides a very easy interface for people to start working remotely and when they're on site and stuff. And perhaps if you've got people working from home that don't have the right equipment currently, there is an equipment shortage on cameras and stuff. Perhaps they could just join their phone and use the camera on their phones and their microphone on there. And that might be a bit of a better way in the meantime of getting people engaged and getting videos and stuff shared. The next thing that we have really is the calendar functionality. So this calendar functionality basically provides a ability to set up a meeting. So all this simply does is show your Outlook calendar. So you don't need to worry about it. It's not a special calendar of any sort. It simply just shows your Outlook calendar. But what I can do is if I've got a meeting, if I open my calendar on Outlook a second, we can see here I've got my calendar open. What I'm actually able to do is if I need to schedule a Microsoft Teams meeting with someone, I can come into here and I can choose the new Teams meeting option. And what that does is it creates a new Teams meeting, and you can see that there would be, I can invite anybody in the world. So I can invite people like suppliers and customers again, and they can then click on this join Teams meeting and they're able to do everything that I'm showing you today. When they join on a Teams meeting, as opposed to the live event, they can share their video, they can have conversations, so there can be a lot more interaction. I've also got the audio conferencing ability here. So what this basically means is that people can, I've paid for an additional license, and that allows people then to dial into the Teams meeting and participate on a phone. So if they don't have a laptop and they just want to join by the phone, that's one of the things that the audio conferencing licensing provides. The next thing is we have basically the activity tab. So the activity tab allows us to post messages and send and receive messages and see what's going on. So the activity tab basically is a feed of what's happening, and all the messages that you've been tagged in and responded to, you can find those in here. And one thing you can do is you can hit that as mark as unread. So if you've seen a message that's important and you want to play that back, you can mark that as unread, and that means you can go back and find that later on as well. The second thing we can do is we can search. So in the very top here, I'm able to do a search, and I can go back and search for all the references to different where tests been mentioned. And I can also filter this to say I'm looking for where the subject was test as well. And you'll see here then that this filters back all the information. So the searching is a very, very powerful way of being able to search and find messages that perhaps have been lost through all the conversation and history that's gone on. Okay, cool. So that's kind of a very quick overview of the Microsoft Teams and the way it works. So to kind of recap, we would recommend that you create these teams for each of your departments. We'd look at creating ones for each of the projects, and definitely create that social wide one so that everybody has that social engagement in the organization. Now, some of the tips that we have for quickly deploying Microsoft Teams. Now, there's a whole host of settings that are available in the portal for Microsoft Teams. So what I would recommend as a company is, if you haven't started with Teams, or if you've deployed it very quickly, that checking the settings that are available in the admin center would be a very good starting point. So I can go to the admin center here. And what I have then is I have a list of all of the settings that are available here. So particularly under org-wide settings, I have one that says guest access. So guest access is the option that lets us decide whether external people are able to join and chat on this. The external access is basically allows us to chat with people using the Skype functionality. And then we've got the Teams settings. So there's lots of settings in here where you can decide whether you can integrate with Dropbox or Box. So you might want to look at disabling those. So I would recommend just running through all of the settings available in Teams Admin Center and just making sure they're set to how you'd want them to be. We also have kind of best practices, so we can help you run through those settings and help tailor and tweak them to your organization as well. The second piece is look at deploying this on all devices. So as I mentioned before, Teams works really well on your Windows or Mac, but I would definitely recommend that you look at setting this up on your mobile phones and your tablets. That just means that when we're out and about and on the move, you're getting the best out of Teams. You're able to start to see messages as you're traveling around. For the people that are using Teams, we'd recommend that you provide hardware to people. So get them a camera, a web camera, get them a headset, just so that you can see people on a video chat, and that when they're on their headsets, it cuts out a lot of the background noise. So we've seen a lot of people are working in their living rooms or their dining rooms. They're obviously very busy. They've got the whole family at home at the moment. We can buy noise cancelling headsets, which is what I've got at the moment. And it basically removes a lot of the background noise and can help when you're doing things like a live event today or just on a customer meeting. We would highly think about recommended training your users. So obviously, as you've seen in the overview, I've given you an overview of how Microsoft Teams would work, but I would seriously consider making sure, don't just let people crack on with Teams without any guidance. Look at training them up and showing them how they can use Teams. A fantastic resource that we share a lot with people is this teamsdemo.office.com. And if you take any user to this, they can hit let's get started. And this is a little interactive web page that basically guides a user through what Teams is about. Even as we flick through this, you can see conversations are popping up. But as we eventually get through, it'll ask the user to then feed back and it'll tag you in. So it's replicating how Teams works. And I can post in here to say response. So this is a really good free training resource that gets people to grips with how Teams works. Guide your users. So this is something we'll cover off shortly. But again, we don't just want people finding their own feet with Teams. You don't just want to give everyone Teams and really say crack on with it. They will eventually find their own feet. But I guess in the current environment, we're trying to get people up to speed quickly. And in the next slide, we'll cover some tips and tricks on how to do that. And then the final piece is to use a specialist. So if you need help, you're looking to fast track this, then get a specialist involved, get one of our consultants or myself involved, and we can help configure this and get the best practices set up and perhaps train your users and get that infrastructure done in the right way. So one of the things here that we found has been very, very successful is department mapping. So what this basically involves is if you look at the way your department used to work in the office environment and trying to then map how that would work in a Microsoft Teams way of working. So we covered this off briefly earlier on, but we would recommend that an organization looks to create a cheat sheet initially. So a cheat sheet, basically, this is an example of a very simple one. And what we've done is we've sat down and we thought, right, how did that department work when we were on site? What were they doing on a day-to-day basis? So as an example, lots of organizations do a stand-up. They do a meeting where everyone gathers in the office, and we would look at replacing those with a daily catch-up meeting. So use the video chat that I said at the start of every day. As an organization, at 8:30 every day, we drag everyone in the company onto a meeting. We do a 15-minute catch-up, and we use that to basically, the first part of that is, did everyone have a good evening? What did you get up to? So we're incorporating the social component. We then move on to what are your tasks for the day? And we then close out the meeting to say, does anyone need any help? And what we find is by doing that at the start of every day is it gets people in the mindset of, right, I'm in work, I've had a catch up, I know what I'm doing, and then they're kick-started then with the rest of the day, which is something people have been struggling with. Is how do you start when you're moving from your living room to a different space and get working? We also recommend a weekly catch-up. So if we're doing a daily catch-up and that's a quick 15-minute at the start and end of every day, a weekly catch-up is a much more detailed session. So this might be a department session where for an hour they'll go into current projects. And again, we'll use the Teams meetings functionality and we'll always record these. That just means if anyone wasn't able to attend the session, they're able to jump on and play back the video. Within a cheat sheet, we're making it really clear to people what we're doing. We're replacing internal emails. So we actually police this process. This was a period for a month where we said as an organization, we're going to move to no internal emails. So that was something we had to initially police. We basically said, right, we're going to use everything, communications, news, announcements, project updates, everything. We're going to go through Microsoft Teams. And by policing that, we basically said, if anybody reverts back to an internal email, it's a self-policing situation where the person who receives the email says, we're not using this way anymore. Can we catch up on Teams? And after a month, we said we'd review whether we'd continue with emails or we'd continue with Microsoft Teams. And every company that's been through this process has decided that internal emails are no good compared to Microsoft Teams. So that's a really good way of doing that. And then other general things in a cheat sheet are what tabs are people going to use, how they should use their equipment. So the cheat sheet really is a really effective way of, rather than a department finding their own feet and finding their own way, this is kind of saying, this is how you use it, this is how you would do it, and translating it for them to get them going. So that kind of covers off the daily and weekly catch-ups and the replacing emails. We talked about the external meetings. So obviously get your customers, get your partners, and use that Teams meeting in your Outlook calendar to get people on there. And then the final piece really is just the tabs. So I briefly went through some of the tabs earlier on, but within Teams, we can have lots of different tabs across the top. So I've got a tab here for cheat sheet. So obviously, as I've said to you, let's create a cheat sheet for each department. I've just pinned that as a document so people can easily find that. They're not hunting around for it. We can also pin another really good app, which is called Planner. So in here, if you hit the little add, there's a planner option that exists. Now, Planner basically is a really simple task management for users. So what we're doing here is we can see a list of all the tasks that are available. So I've got things like SharePoint deployment, Teams rollout, and what I'm able to do is I can see that I can create different buckets. So a bucket could be a subsection of a department, it could be a status, it could be whatever you like, really. So I could put one in here for management. And then what I can do is I can click add a task, and I can then start to say, right, we're going to management, we need to do a PDR. I can then choose a due date, the end of the month, and I can assign that to people within the team here. So if you guys are looking for a way of basically managing tasks and getting people up to speed with that, the planner is a very visual tool that enables us to assign them to individuals, assign subtasks, and then put due dates on those to get them going with that. So planner's a really, really good tab to maybe start thinking about how you're going to work differently and what you can do. We can also pin kind of apps. So we've got some apps that we use. We've got an expenses app that we've developed, and that basically allows users to add their expenses from in here. And this works really well on a mobile phone as well. So think of the tabs basically for each department as, instead of hunting around as a team and trying to find different information and find different stuff, that's all in one place. And as a department, I can just find what I'm looking for on this view here. So that's kind of the map departments to remote working. The key really is the department cheat sheet. So think about building this cheat sheet, map their way of working, and don't let them find their own way. Just kind of give them some guidance and structure. And what you'll see then is adoption will rise much quicker. So some of the governance we've covered off briefly, but as I said before, look at the team settings, or get us to help you look through the team settings. The security is a key piece. So there is a lot of additional security tools. There's a product called EMS, which allows us to do things like lock down Teams so it can't be accessed on home PCs. So I would recommend investigating what security additions are available. Adoption is a really key part of this. So we provide training. We can do lots of Teams training sessions remotely, and we can record those sessions. And that just helps with your users getting adopted on the platform. Look at the devices that are available. So again, as I said earlier, if you can't get devices at the moment, set up people's phones to get them accessed on there. Or if you can get webcams and headsets, I'd really recommend that you do that, just because it improves their experience while they're using the platform. And obviously then review whether external sharing in those team settings are set as they should be as well. We've also got the Teams telephony piece. So the Teams telephony piece basically is around setting the ability to send and receive calls. So CSG are able to do two pieces of this. They're able to do Teams voice, which basically adds a new tab here called calls. What that then does is it gives you a number here. So you can see I've got my number. So if anyone dials that number, they'll be able to call it. Or I can send a call out here. So the Teams voice simply adds the ability for Teams to be able to send and receive phone calls, whether mobiles, international or domestic. I can also have kind of speed dial, so you can add your favorite contacts into this list. And you can also access your voicemail from here as well. Within the Teams voice as well, you've got quite a few cool settings. So I can actually go into the calls here, and I can change my own rules to say, if someone does ring my direct dial number, also ring my mobile, or if I don't answer it after 20 seconds, ring a different number as well. So the Teams voice basically is a very good phone system. So within here, I've got the Microsoft 365 phone. I've got here the ability to add that for £12 per user per month. And I can also extend that to have an additional international calling for £9 a user a month. We also then have the business voice without the call plan. So this basically enables us to do the calling without a call plan from Microsoft. So we can then add something on via something called direct routing, which is a service that we offer, and you can get in touch with us about more information around that. So some quick tips you can action today. If you don't have Microsoft Teams, go and get it off the portal. Go to office.com and you can click on Teams and install that from there. If you've not done a meeting via Teams, then I would recommend that you book a call and a video internally and get started with that. Start a Teams meeting. So this means, as I said, if you're working as a department remotely at the moment and you haven't done a Teams meeting, think about doing a Teams meeting at the start and end of every day and start to use this platform as a way of getting your department to work effectively. Number 4, create a department cheat sheet. So that basically is what I showed you earlier. Instead of departments finding their own way, give them that jump start and map something out to really help them use that. And number 5, book a Teams training session with one of our specialists where we can go through and help your organization get up to speed with Microsoft Teams. Some Microsoft remote working tips. So obviously convert your departments to remote working. We've covered off in a lot of detail. The next one is take breaks and be healthy. So it's really easy to fall into the trap when you're working from home of just sitting at your desk all day and then looking at your step count all day and seeing you've done 20 steps. It's definitely not a healthy way to do so. So we recommend having breaks set out throughout the day and take the opportunity to go for a walk at lunch, use your exercise. Don't just be sat all day at your desk. And use those breaks to have conversations with your co-workers. Don't just be constantly working. You can have a social catch up with your co-workers and catch up with those as well. Use Microsoft Teams effectively. So as you've seen today, there's lots of functionality like the conversations and the files and planner that if you were to use the most out of it, you can really drive the adoption and adoption of Microsoft Teams up. Use Microsoft 365 effectively. So we've touched on things like Planner. There's lots of tools that exist within Microsoft 365 like SharePoint, Power Apps that will definitely help you with this. So I'd recommend you look at using the other tools that are available to you, and we can set up a demo to show you those if needed. And the final piece is just promote the social and fun. So don't fall into the trap of work, work, work. Look at things like the social hour. Look at having a catch-up meeting where it's not just about work and promoting this social fun piece to the remote working. So we're offering Microsoft remote workshops and training. So if you guys are looking or anything we've showed you today, our workshops are very much focused on setting up the platform and setting up the infrastructure so that they can help spend half a day or a day looking at how you should configure Teams, how you should set the initial infrastructure up. But also if you're looking at training sessions, we can offer those. So we offer a lot of different services around the workshops and training. So anything that you've seen today, if you want to spend time with our consultants, get in touch and we can provide some timelines and costs for delivering some remote workshops or training. So that brings us to the Q&A side of things. So Matt, perhaps it'd be good for us to both jump in on the questions if you're still around.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So the first question is, will the PowerPoint be shared after the webinar? So we're going to post this as a video for everyone to see. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll share it as a video, and then obviously it's easier for people to consume that then.
Perfect. So what is SIP routing and direct routing? Is that something you can cover off for us, Matt?
Yeah, so SIP and direct routing is essentially replacing Microsoft's version of their voice additional licensing. Although it's available, there are some kind of limitations around it, which I'm guessing Microsoft will further extend. But if as a business you wanted to migrate to your current phone numbers and have your voice services maintained by a mature UK-based SIP provider, which hundreds of thousands of SIP kind of services per month, then obviously you can port your numbers in. You can then use Teams as your day-to-day business phone system. So you can make UK, international, national, and local calls via Teams, via your headsets on the soft phone, and that then kind of presents your business number. Any calls made into your organisation or your DDIs will essentially come to you then as a Teams user.
Brilliant, thank you. We use Dropbox and not OneDrive. Will files and Teams still work? So there is an integration for Dropbox. So if you're using that platform, you're able to go into the files, and I'll just see if I can show you very quick. So if I go to Teams, I go to Files at the top here, and I can choose Add Cloud Storage, and one of those is Dropbox. So that'll then enable you to use Dropbox for the files functionality. What if you don't want everyone to see a message? I know you can see at someone, but is that private? So if you're in a team and you're posting messages in a team, the concept of it is everyone can see those messages. If you're not in it, if you're in a private channel within a team, you can restrict who can see it. But if you're ultimately looking to do a private message to someone, you can use the individual chat tab at the top here. So if you choose this chat, you're then able to go to an individual in here and you can send them a message from there as well. Is there a limit against the number of people? So there are limits, but the limits are very, very high. I think it's 250 people in a Teams meeting. It's 10,000 in a live event, which is what we're doing now. And it's a very high number in an actual team as well. So unless you've got a very large enterprise organization, you don't need to worry too much about the limitations of that. People can you invite to a company-wide team. So there is an option when you create a team. So when I click on Teams, if you have the ability and choose Create a Team, there's an option here that will appear called an org-wide team. We've already got one, so it doesn't show, but that will allow you to create an automatic team that invites everybody into it. We use Yammer to communicate with our company departments through communities. Will we be seeing Teams replacing Yammer? That's kind of controversial, I think. So they're still investing in Yammer. They've recently added a Yammer plugin for Microsoft Teams. So there is investment from Microsoft, but if you're using it, Yammer, and it's really successful, I probably wouldn't jump to going into Teams and replacing that. But what we are seeing is a lot of companies who aren't using Yammer and they're starting off with Teams, they don't see why they would use the two platforms. So I think if you've already got Yammer working successfully, then continue with that and continue and look at the Yammer plugin. But potentially, if you don't have Yammer, it might be a big stretch to try and implement Yammer and Teams, and you might find that Teams is the best way to go forward. Is this going to replace Outlook? So there's no plans for this to replace Outlook, but as I mentioned earlier on, lots of companies are replacing internal emails by using this. So there's no plan from Microsoft to get rid of Outlook or internal emails or merge them. It's a different way of working, and it would require your company culture to change probably to adapt to this. So there's no plans for that. There's lots of questions, so we'll try and go through all of them. We've got 5 more minutes. Please, can you confirm how many people could currently be on a call? Is it 9? No, there's 100 people can be on a call. Sorry, 250 people can be on a call, but the video can only show up to 4 currently, and soon it'll show up to 9, but you can have 250 people on one call, and it just switches the video between who's talking. There's lots of information to take in here. Is there an online resource or resources where I can find these? So, yeah, we will send over some links as part of the video, but if you were to search for Teams Get Started on Google, Microsoft have got some really good Get Started, this top link, Get Started with Teams. This is a really good starting point, and there's lots of helpful information on that page. Do you need to have Office 365 to be able to join a Teams meeting? No, people can join for free and they can join from the web browser. I'm just trying to flick through some of these. Can you mute notifications from Teams? So it's possible to change your settings on each channel. So we can selectively mute notifications by going into the channel settings and turning those off. Can you remotely wipe Teams from a mobile device in the event of a loss of a device? So there is a product called EMNS and Intune, and of particular interest in Intune, there's something called mobile application management policies. And what we can do with the mobile application management policy is when a user installs Teams on their personal device, they're able to basically, this mobile application management will protect the app. So you're not interfering with their device in any way, but you're putting a security wrapper around the app. And what that means is if the device is lost, you can remotely wipe that, or if the employee leaves, we can also wipe that as well.
Hugh, on that point, I think it's important to mention, these things don't work out of the box today in terms of Intune. Policies need to be created and obviously deployed according to the organization's requirements.
Yeah, unfortunately, everything with Microsoft is kind of the software and tools are there, but they require setting up, and they usually require someone with some knowledge on how to do that. I'll pick probably 3 more questions. So, does Outlook Task Management integrate with Teams? So there is some new stuff. The planner stuff that I showed you allows you to pin the tasks from in here, but they don't show the tasks that are in Planner. So what you can actually do is you can also get a tool called Microsoft To Do. And what that does is it's got a section here called flagged email. So any email that you flag in Outlook can pop up in this to-do list. And this also shows the tasks from Planner. So To Do is kind of like a central task management system that could help you with that challenge. How do you incorporate online games into Teams for social? So this is a good one. So when you're sharing a screen on Teams, you have the ability to use system audio. So there's a selection as you share in your screen that allows you to transfer your system audio. So that means if you're playing music in the background on your PC, that music will play for everyone else who's on the meeting. So when we've been using an online game called Jackbox, that has audio playing and questions like a quiz. So we use that audio section to basically transfer the audio so everyone can participate in that. And then generally we play online games and we just use Teams as a audio thing, and everyone just chats while the game's being played online separately. We've got probably one last question, which is how safe is it to upload your server files and have them sit in Teams? So this, again, kind of comes back to the security side of things. If you were just to grab all your files and put them into Teams without any consideration around the security, then I would say it's not a very secure way of doing it. But if you consider the security and we look at some of the advanced security products that are available around EMNS, we're able to lock down Teams, and we can put things like 2-factor authentication in front of it, so we can really limit how we can increase the security, I guess, of the platform. So there are lots of other questions, very, very interactive group. So I guess if you do have more questions, you can get in touch with us, and perhaps we can arrange another session to go through those in more detail. Would that be a good way forward, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you've done a very good job covering those off. Do you want me to summarise off, Phil?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so I mean, in summary, today's event, key takeaways really should be around the fact that these tools are already available to all 365 clients. We can help you get a better understanding of these technologies. We can help you understand how these can add value into your organizations. But really important, this will ensure you're making the most from your Office 365 CSP investments, because I know a lot of the customers personally, and there are some services which you're not consuming, which you probably can. Obviously, the question around migration of data into Teams, that would sit within SharePoint, but then that's more of a business change then. So that takes a bit of visibility and oversight then to plan that forward. Get some consultancy services in place. So, we can work with you to get some training, review your processes, and ensure these services are adopted to best suit your own key challenges. And then, really important as a last takeaway, security. You need to be more proactive than ever over your security services, not just around Microsoft security, but all facets of security covering endpoint, server, intrusion prevention, mobile devices, and obviously then access restrictions. So who has access into what? This is now more vitally important than ever with staff working remotely, because with the criminals are becoming more kind of tactful and intelligent, and these threats now are hitting staff working remotely. So it does need to get kind of oversight and incorporated into an organization's overall strategy. So I want to extend my thanks to Hugh today. I think he's done a very good job in answering some questions and taking you through a demo and an overview of what Teams can provide your organizations. On that note, we will send across a share of the video, and should any organizations want to engage a bit further to get some consultancy and some training, we can speak to you outside of this call and essentially plan that forward. So I want to thank you for taking the time to sit on today's event, and I hope it's been useful to all of you. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Speak to you soon.